Welcome. It is currently about 6 o'clock here in Jerusalem, Israel. And it is nice to virtually see all of you. What I want to do tonight is it's tonight my time. I want to take you through a presentation really that I feel more than ever, this presentation is just super relevant to what is going on. And even more than just relevant, hopefully extremely helpful as far as really how to try and figure out, even with all of the craziness and all of the tragedies which we are seeing, how we can also figure out how to make this into a growth opportunity, especially for our marriages. So what I'd like to do here tonight is I'd like to take you through a presentation. The presentation time is about, we'll see how it goes, but the time is scheduled for is 30 minutes. And then after that, what we'll do is question and answer. There is a section here which says Q&A. You can put your questions in there as we go along. And at the end, I will deal with all of the questions. In addition, all of the slides will be made available for you afterwards. And that is a story. So I'm going to take you through this presentation and we'll go from there. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And we are off. Okay. So what the title of this webinar is called is Practical Tips and Building Your Marriage and COVID-19, which is what all of us, no matter where you are in the world right now, it's what we are all dealing with. And again, my name is Yosef, Lynn, and I am a part of the MAPP 7 community. Before I go any further, I just want to just give gratitude just to basically the MAPP Penn alumni team. You know, I've been just bombarded with emails from them about different opportunities and different things that are going on and different support options. And it's just been amazing to see. And of course, the greater MAPP community. Marty, without Marty, none of us would be here right now. Who is the ultimate facilitator to allow all of us to kind of pick our own unique way of how to integrate positive psychology into the world. My students, and I'll get back to them soon as far as how they've been so helpful for me leading up to these past months, but especially in these past months. And most importantly, to my wife and my 5 daughters. You may hear them upstairs during this presentation. For allowing me to take time away and to actually prepare for this. Okay, so my background is interesting. There are lots of things I'm involved with, but the thing that I really want to focus on that I've been involved with really over the past 15 years is the world of marriage education. And what I'm involved with, I'm the Dean of Students at an institution here in Israel, which is basically a place where people come to gain more understanding, more of a relationship with how Judaism can impact their life in a very powerful way. And then the goal is to take those concepts and bring them back into their life that they are living, usually back in America or in other places of Europe. But what I really have been kind of dedicating my life to a lot over the past 15 years is the world of marriage education. A fascinating thing that I've seen, which is interesting, that if you look at our professional lives, when it comes to our professional lives, you know, the world of education, getting ready for that job, it's tremendous. The amount of money, the amount of time, the amount of energy we put into preparing for that career, it's unbelievable. Then what happens? Then you actually get that job. Okay. Now, the amount of constant ongoing training, and you have situations where now you are, being assessed. How's your work doing? What do people think of you? Trying to now move on from that position. When it comes to our professional lives, the amount of education that we have is unbelievable, both leading up to it, and then once you're in your career, actually flourishing and trying to develop in your career. What's fascinating, though, is that when you ask people, what's the most, or if not on top two of your major priorities in life, okay, many people will say having a great marriage. And what you see is something quite fascinating is that, well, okay, if that's a main end goal, if that's what I really want, so how much am I actually preparing myself before I get married to actually be a great spouse? And then actually now, once I am married, so what am I doing to make sure that I'm improving upon myself, getting better, working myself out more, getting new skills, etc.? And what I have really kind of dedicated my life to, and this is where a lot of this webinar really reflecting this topic, is the world of marriage education. And the amount of information that is out there that can allow people to not only be prepared for this most important thing in their life, and then once they're in it, the amount of information available to help them actually flourish once they're now in their marriage and gain better skills and be a better spouse, it's awesome. And I find that, I find so many people that I work with where they feel so educated in so many parts of their life, but when it comes to some of those fundamental things they really want, like especially a marriage, there they feel that their education, both before and during, isn't anywhere close to the level of education that they have a lot of times in their professional lives. So really what I've been involved with is dealing with, over the past 15 years, dealing with students and dealing especially with marriages, both in the world of getting ready for marriage, and then once we're in the world of marriage, now how do we make that marriage that much stronger? In particular, as I said before, that my students, I've been actually running on Sundays. I've been running with students basically all over America via our new best friend Zoom, running actually, Q&A type sessions with these students who are all married, and basically speaking about how to make sure their marriages are in a great place during this process, how to deal with the stresses, etc. So many of those ideas that I've been dealing with my students are things I would like to share here tonight. So what I want to just deal with for a second here before we go any further is I want to speak about, when it comes to the world of marriage, just some of the realities that we're seeing right now since the whole outbreak of this virus. We have seen that there are divorce rates that are jumping in certain places in China in a very drastic way when people are coming out of quarantine. We've seen that inquiries that people who are in the process of a divorce, this came out of New York, that people who are in the process of divorce, the amount of inquiries of people that are looking into a way to expedite their divorce, to try and figure out how to move things along much faster, those inquiries have been extremely high. And unfortunately, we've all seen that the world of domestic abuse has skyrocketed in a very unfortunate manner. So much so that in certain parts of Europe, there's now a new code word. If a person goes into a pharmacy and they are dealing with domestic abuse, that if you go over to the pharmacist and you say, as you're saying all the different things you want, if you also say the word, the words, I would like mask 19, that's a code word, that, a code phrase that you are suffering from domestic abuse right now. And therefore that's a way of how it can be dealt with urgently. So, if you look around, I've been following a lot of the topic of in the world of the media, of how, kind of the media is speaking about, relationships, especially marriage. And many of the images that you see in the media are about marriages really having a difficult time. And so this kind of image right here is something which is actually quite a common scene, or something of the like. There have been jokes out there as well. I'm sure people have, tons and tons of jokes that they have seen. Although the situation obviously at large is not a joking, this virus is, the power of this virus and how serious it is, but there have been jokes obviously that people have been sharing, but especially in the world of marriage, these are some of the jokes that I have seen. The woman knitting a noose, etc. So the energy that I've seen of a lot of the articles and a lot of the kind of the pop psychology articles have been about where people are really struggling, especially in the world of marriage. And one thing that is quite fascinating, and I'm going to try and deal with this a lot, is that while we are separate from everyone in the world, even some people who are separate from their families, your marriage is a place that you are engaged in, maybe more than ever before in your life. And normally when you could have a married couple, and husband works here, the wife works here, they have their schedules, they have their routines, the relationship which is gaining so much attention, so much of our focus, is the world of marriage. And what I want to kind of go into right now is that while there is the natural kind of tendency for people to be speaking about the issues that are happening and what's going on, and what I'd like to propose here is that maybe what we are dealing with in some way is maybe what we are dealing with here is a huge opportunity, and an opportunity that if people take advantage of it, it could be a total game changer to your marriage. And that's why I want to kind of shift this whole presentation. And here's what I want to kind of go into. And the world of regular marriages where they're not on the brink of divorce, marriages where people are not totally falling apart. As I said when we started off, is that what happens is like this. A lot of times in life, what I find when I do with a lot of married couples is that so many married couples will say that their marriage and their family, which I don't want to spend time on right now speaking about family dynamics, but their marriage is such a priority for them. It's everything they work for. It's everything they live for. But the reality is, if you look about how much time, energy, and attention it actually gets, sometimes it can be quite low. And therefore you have this gap between what I want and what I hold to be true, and actually how it's playing out in my daily actions and what I'm actually proactively involved with during my day. And this right now, more than anything else, is whether you like it or not, your marriage is front and center in your life. And that is something which is really, it's the opportunity to bridge together what we want and maybe where we're not making enough of an effort. And I really feel that, obviously all of us know that in order to get through hardships, our marriages need to be as resilient, more resilient than ever before. But I really feel that this is an opportunity, a strong opportunity to really go from that world of having a good marriage to an amazing marriage. And what I want to do right now is, now that we have this huge opportunity in front of us, you have this situation where not only is my marriage my top priority, but I can actually spend time and energy actually investing in that, okay? In the words of one of my favorite bands growing up, Van Halen, okay, that I really think that right now is an amazing opportunity, that if people really take advantage of what this situation can do as far as to build your marriage and get your marriage to a totally different place, I think that the end results, when we look back on this whole tragedy, at least we'll be able to look back on our marriages and say, the way I walked in to this whole craziness and the way I walked out, we are a different couple, we're a different team, and I'm so glad that I put the time, energy, and effort into making that my main priority. So what I want to do is like this, is I want to give you some practical, real tips. Now, before I go into that, I've been speaking to especially a lot of my students about, they ask me questions in the world of children and dynamics in the home and things to do. And what I want to kind of deal, I want to speak about that for quickly, but I want to kind of put it off the table. What I have seen, especially during stressful situations, is that the greatest thing that you can give your children during this time, for those of you that do have children, is the greatest thing you can give them if you give them a home where you have a husband and wife that are in a great place together, a husband and wife that are really working hard to make their marriage amazing. the overflow to the children, that will be so strong. That will have such a huge impact. You know, you can do some exercises here and there, and I can give you a bunch of things that, you know, some ideas what to do with kids during this time. But the greatest thing that can be done, especially when we're dealing with such insecure kind of situations, such situations of where we're unsure of what the next step will be, of what the next set of research will show as far as where this whole disease is going, creating a home where the marriage is strong can be the greatest overflow, especially during a time of craziness like this. So therefore, in my mind, if there's an option of trying to figure out what to give your kids and trying to figure out, hey, maybe let's put some real effort into our marriage. Of course, you have to give attention to your children, but putting effort into marriage, I think, can be a tremendous game changer for everyone here. So what I want to do here and where I want to go with this whole presentation is I want to kind of base off a lot of work of a recent book that that I co-authored called Not a Partnership. I'm not going to go into right now about what that title really is. This book is basically a fusion of the world of positive psychology and a lot of ancient Jewish wisdom. And really, many of the things I'm going to speak about right now, you can find them there. But I want to give you the things that are really relevant, just especially with our situation that we're dealing with. But I think that what's important right now is to really kind of, in some way, while I had, you know, kind of two ideas of how to go with this webinar. On one hand, just give some nice pointers. On the other hand, I just felt that maybe it'd be a real opportunity, since we're focusing on our marriages so much, let's try and really kind of go back to basics and make sure that we're on the right path. So I'm going with the back to basics option. And, you know, this book kind of really deals with two fundamental ideas. Number one, it really gives a clear definition of what is this thing called marriage? What is this thing that every little kid yearns for, that all of us dream of? Every movie has an amazing scene about it. Like, what is this thing? What is this thing that we desire in such a strong way that becomes our legacy? And number two is, okay, great. Well, what's the instruction manual? I mean, just figure it out, or is there a clear instruction manual for it? And really, what the book is about is dealing with these questions. And the way that I see the book is that, you know, I'm a huge fan on my bookshelf over here of so many of the great works that have been written on marriage, and they are awesome. And I give them all to my students. I read them myself. And what we really tried to do was kind of write a book which we felt was a little bit of a prerequisite to those books. But let's get some of the fundamental questions clear. Let's get the infrastructure set up as far as what a marriage is and what the PDF manual is for it. And then we can start putting on how-tos, get better at this, etc. So what I want to do is I want to kind of take you through some of the structure of this book here. Now, the book is really built off of, and this is what I really hold to be true, that there are three fundamental paradigm shifts that people have to get clear when it comes to the world of marriage. Okay? Number one, what is a marriage? And if I describe and kind of give my elevator speech of what a marriage is basically the total commitment to the well-being of another individual. That I am going to do everything in my power. I'm going to dedicate my life to giving my spouse everything that she needs in order for her to thrive, in order for her to have the life that she wants. It's not just about, here is an opportunity for me to get all the things that Yosef, Lynn needs. Thank you so much. It is my total investment in a situation to do everything I can to help my spouse flourish. And hopefully my spouse is looking at it the same way. A lot of times when people don't have the right definition of what a marriage is, we look at maybe marriage as a place of where I can get certain needs met. Maybe it's a place where it gives me certain feelings, and therefore maybe when those feelings aren't there, I back away from it. When people don't have clear that real definition, whenever we don't have that ultimate kind of endpoint as far as where we're going and why we're doing something, nothing becomes clear. Number two is, this is something that I find myself telling my students nonstop, which is great marriages don't just happen. There's no such thing in the world of a great marriage that just worked itself out. All great marriages are built. They are built between two people who are working hard to make something beautiful. You know, I don't want to go too, deep, but in the mystical world, basically, you see that this idea of everything in life always has two phases. It has inspiration, and then the inspiration fades away, and then boom, now hits the reality of, now I have to actually work hard to make that happen. And so too, in the world of marriages, what we often have is that we have this world of, there's this bliss, there's this amazing energy, and then what happens is all of a sudden we see very fast that that point ends, and at that point, that's when great marriages are really built. The third thing, and this is really the PDF manual, is that all loving is based upon giving. And there's a famous question about, what happens? Do I love people and then I give to them? Or do I give to people and then that creates love? And the answer is, when you give to people, that creates love. And if you look in our lives, when we invest in things and we give ourselves to things, okay, it doesn't matter what that thing is, we obviously feel that much more connected to it. We desire it that much more. These are three fundamental paradigm shifts that are going to kind of put everything into place for now all of the practical tools that I want to begin to give you, okay? So basically what you have is, you have the PDF manual for now having a successful marriage is basically going to be a world of two spouses totally committed to giving to each other. And what you're going to find is, the more each spouse gives to one another, that creates an energy of growth, that creates real change in the marriage. What I'm going to do right now is, we're going to go into the world of practicality. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go through these things right now. And then what we'll do is, we'll end up on the other side in about 10 minutes in the world of Q&A, and we can go from there, okay? In the world of giving, if that's our PDF manual of a marriage, there's basically, and how I call it, is 4 pillars of giving. And these are basically 4 different pillars that are different elements of how we give. And what I'm going to do right now, okay, is go through all 4 of these. Now, as you're hearing all 4 of these, we're now going to get into the very practical part of this webinar. You're not going to be able to do all of these. But what I would tell you is, try, as you're listening, to pick 1 or 2 of these things and take them and try and integrate them right now into your marriage. So here we go, okay? The first is the idea of keeping it fresh. And what we know is that, probably the biggest problem I see, in the world of marriages today, and this may sound funny, is that couples get really old really fast. And I find that all of a sudden you have couples who are married for a short time, and it's like they've been married for 30 years. And whoa, okay? We especially have in the world of, I don't want to go too into it, the world of social comparison theory, where all of a sudden what happens is, nonstop, we are in a situation of where we are comparing a lot of times our marriages to all of our social media feeds that we're seeing. And you're seeing that snapshot of all of these amazing images and all of these happy couples. And that can also create a lot of frustration, because you feel like your marriage may lack a certain freshness. But the reality is that you can get back to that bliss, and you can even get beyond it. And I want to offer some tips right now of how people can really make sure that not only are they trying to bring some freshness back into their marriage, but they're really on their game, especially with the situation that we're dealing with. So some practical ideas of how to keep it fresh is people making an effort with, as far as how they dress and how they look. You think back, I look at pictures of when I was, engaged, of when I was dating my wife, and there I was, always trimmed up, always looking a certain way, always smelling a certain way. And what can happen very fast is that all of a sudden, this whole way can actually fade. And we end up a lot of times doing everything we can to look fresh and look clean and make an effort for the outside world, but not for our internal world, which is our home. And that's the world that we are so immersed in right now. People need to focus on healthy eating and exercise. I know there's been a lot of talk that I've seen people discussing about this. But again, especially how this impacts your marriage, I know very clearly if I'm eating well and I'm exercising well, okay, that's a way of me giving to my spouse, because that's going to impact me drastically, which will impact her. Creating a romantic evening. I'm not going to go into some of these ideas right now, but especially during this time right now, it's very easy to get caught up in the stress. It's very easy to get caught in the frustration of what's happening. It's very easy to feel overwhelmed. You look at the news, it's something which is more than depleting. But if couples can find a way of how to create that romantic evening, how to do something where you turn off your phones and you shut down from everyone and you light some candles and you just spend time together, separate from the reality that all of us are dealing with, it can be something which gives you a spark of freshness in your marriage, which is awesome. High quality connections, which I don't want to go too much into right now, can be generated especially by couples going out of their way of how to have fun together, couples figuring out a way of how to laugh together. It's an amazing thing. My wife and I just downloaded basically the first series, I'm going to date myself a little bit, of Seinfeld, just as a way of at night just shutting down and getting the kids to bed and just laughing for a little bit is just something that can create a tremendous amount of well-being. And even, this may sound a little bit strange, but even you and your spouse getting involved in something right now of figuring out a way of how to give back to your community, how to do something here that can impact other people around you. These are just some of the things. Again, it's a much longer, lecture about the idea of keeping it fresh, but these are some of the tools that you can bring into your life and into your marriage about how to keep things more fresh, how to keep things more upbeat. And especially now we're in such a stressful situation, to go out of your way to do things, it can create a certain energy in your marriage, which can actually be super powerful. The next topic is the topic, okay, of gratitude. Pillar number 2 is gratitude, okay? All of us know that the world of expectations can be a destructive force. But, it's really amazing that, especially now, just the amount that's being done for each other. I think about what my wife is doing for me all day long. Here I am, she's trying to work, I'm trying to work. There's so many things that she's doing in order to help me deal with the situation. And it's unbelievable. And it's fascinating is that a lot of times in our marriages, because we have expectations, it's almost as though that, when our spouses match those expectations, great, fantastic, thank you so much. When they go one little centimeter below those expectations, we're frustrated. When they really exceed them, okay, so that's where I really give my attention. But there's so much that's being done for us right now, especially during this difficult time, that the world of gratitude could be one of the greatest ways to give to your spouse. Some of the practical ideas of how you can incorporate gratitude into your relationship is, we always hear about the 3 blessings exercise, but there's also an idea of a 3 blessings, marriage exercise, where people, before they go to bed at night, think of 3 practical things that your spouse has done for you that day. I'm not going to go into all the research that we've seen with the impact of the gratitude exercise, but imagine just now shifting that and putting that on your spouse. I've even found even more than that. Figure out 3 small ways each week, 3 small, tiny ways each week of how you can express your gratitude to your spouse. Again, this is important for all times, but especially now. Maybe it's a dinner, maybe it's a small note, maybe it's a small gift, maybe who knows what it is. But there's tons of things that can be done where you can go out of your way, not just for you to feel it yourself, but for you to express it. The third pillar of giving, which I want to discuss, is the world of respect. And it's interesting, when I researched a lot, especially for the book, probably one of the topics that people spoke about the most is the world of respect. And all of us understand the importance of it. And especially now where there is a lot of tension and people are dealing with stress and people are dealing with uncertainty, it's super important, especially in our marriages, to make sure that we're going out of our way to be respectful towards our spouses. And again, when you look at that through the paradigm of giving, it's a game changer. The world of communication is obviously a vast topic, but if you look a lot of the articles I've read recently about, marriages and dealing with this whole trauma, people always speak about the world of communication and the importance of communication. And in the world of communication, while I can't agree more with it, what I usually find is that, especially when couples are speaking about their marriages, they often forget the part of communication, which is, well, what's going right in our marriage? What are we actually doing well right now, especially during this stress? And so the importance of making your communication about where things are going right, okay, is a huge thing and actually creates, okay, a lot of positive energy in the relationship. Obviously, what has to happen is things need to be discussed properly as far as maybe some frustrations that you're feeling, where things aren't going the way you want them to go, where you're having a hard time with what the other person is doing. I always like to say that in the world of communication, there are basically two fundamental ideas of how all difficult kind of communication has to happen. Number one, it's about timing. You get the timing right, it's amazing. You get the timing wrong, disaster. And number two is how you say it. Do we speak to our spouse in some sort of attacking manner, in some sort of aggravated manner, in some sort of accusing manner? Or do we speak in the language of we? Do we speak in the language of respect? And without these two things really being there before you have those difficult conversations, I often find that the communication actually doesn't go well. So as we're dealing with right now, the world of just respect, and there are frustrations that are being built, if we tap into proper communication, it can be a true game changer. The thing that I found as one of the great helpful tips right now, and really, when you respect people, a lot of times we have more patience for them. And what can happen right now, and I see happen with a lot of couples, is we can become so exacting with each other. And because we're surrounded by each other so much, because we're with each other so often, we can be so exacting. And what I find is that if you can find kind of one opportunity a day, okay, one opportunity a day in order to do what? Let it go. And just not respond to it, okay? It could be a way of building that much more respect and having a respectful kind of mode of how you communicate and how you deal with each other. In my house, I have 5 daughters. We've seen Frozen at least 45 times in the past 4 weeks. And therefore, when I hear the song Let It Go, usually about 3 times a day, because not only do they watch the movie, they also play the song. And I can go into Frozen 2 as well. But, when I see Let It Go, the image I have in my mind is kind of the best piece of marriage advice, which is not like she does in the movie, which are let your strengths out and be who you are. I mean more let it go in the sense of just let it slide by. I don't have to make that comment. I don't have to say my frustration every single time something doesn't go exactly the way I want it. The last of the 4 pillars is really something that, in my mind, this is it. And this is something which, if you're able to do this, it is something which can impact your life drastically right now in your marriage, and especially your professional life. The last pillar of giving is really something which is quite fascinating. if you look at people, human beings usually have a couple of main core negative traits. Let's say a person has an anger issue. That's a fundamental part of who they are. That anger issue will come up at work, with their friends, with their family, with their children, everywhere across the board. And obviously, especially during now, it comes up where? It comes up in your marriage. And this is really kind of an indirect approach of how to work on your marriage, which is, this is something which is all of a sudden, what you're going to do is you're going to say, you know what? I have a couple of key fundamental core issues in my life. What I'm going to do is, I know this issue gets in the way of my marriage. I'm going to forget my spouse right now. My spouse has nothing to do with this. I'm going to take full responsibility for one of those issues. And what happens like this? Now is what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick that topic. I'm going to own it. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to listen to a podcast, take an online course, you name it. Okay. Maybe even I'm going to use this time, especially now where I have more time, maybe to work with a therapist. There are therapists all over the world using Zoom. But the way I'm going to give to my spouse is, I'm going to sit down and take full responsibility for one of my issues in my life. And I know that issue is probably impacting everywhere in my life, and impacting me everywhere in my life, probably in a negative way. But you know what? I want to really try and take it on, and I'm going to try and own it, because I know for sure it's impacting my wife, okay, or my spouse. And therefore, this is about a world of you taking total responsibility for what you bring to the table. The most awesome thing is, all of a sudden, when you have one spouse that begins to do this, usually what ends up happening in a healthy marriage, the other spouse will begin to say, hey, what's that thing that I bring to the table? And all of a sudden, what you can have is, you can have a couple, you imagine their bedroom, and each one on their side bed, their bedside table has stacks of books and, information about that thing that they're working on. And although it indirectly, is kind of a way of working on the marriage, it's probably one of the most direct ways possible. These are 4 pillars, as I described, of the world of giving. And these are all different ways of the world of giving, and how it can actually, if you do it right and you make that the central focus of your marriage, things can be totally, totally different, especially during this time. And what I want to just end here with is that, what people work on and they think about a long time in their life, if you really focus hard, things can really change in a drastic manner. And what you can accomplish now, you can put your marriage in a totally different level, in a totally different place. And again, as I said, and I heard Marty say it in one of his interviews, that although we are separate from the world right now, what I'm adding to that is that we're not separate from that fundamental relationship in our life. And if we use this as an opportunity, I really think that people can really tap into the world of real greatness when it comes to moving their relationship from being good to being that much stronger. And with that, what I want to do here is, I just want to end by thanking you all so much. These slides will be made available if people want to go back into them and see the different 4 pillars of giving and different examples there. But what I want to do right now is, I want to open up, if there are questions. What I want to do, there's an icon here at the bottom which says Q&A. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. I just want to wish all of you everyone should be safe and everyone should be healthy. And looking forward to a time when all of us can actually come together and share this information in person. Take care. And again, thank you so much to everyone who organized this, everyone who's making it happen. Wishing all of you a wonderful week, and looking forward to being in touch soon.